They're doing things they've never done, hoping that it's lots of fun. Oh, 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 they're Nerdgins.
Hello, nerdlings.
Hello, nerdlings.
So we're starting a new segment called
New year, new segment.
Yeah, gotta mix it up a little bit, and it is going to be called Nerdgins.
Now I know what you're thinking. What the hell is a nerdgin?
Well, aside from nerdy virgins, although it does kind of come into play with that, because as nerdy as we try to be with all of our collectibles and everything, there are some things that we come to the party a little late on, so we have to play catch up.
Yeah, whether it's we've just not had the time to get around to it, or it was something that happened before we were born, so we couldn't get into it, and we got into it later in life, or something like that. So,
and a lot of times it's just not having the time, whether it's certain video games or tabletop games that we haven't had a chance to get to.
TV shows, movies,
definitely.
Yeah.
And speaking of our very first Nerdgin experience, I guess,
Yeah.
is a TV show that a lot of people were raving about, so we had to finally sit down and at least catch the first season of
Stranger Things!
Stranger Things.
And I know you're thinking, dude, it's 8 episodes. How could you not find the time for 8 episodes?
Now, for starters, we do have the Netflix collector edition here. And the funny thing is, even though we had never seen the show and we really didn't follow anything about it, although there were a lot of spoilers that we had seen and been,
I've gotten
privy
a lot
to,
of stuff in my crate boxes and my mystery crate boxes.
we didn't seek out the spoilers.
Yes.
But there were a lot of things that we knew. But anyway, we actually saw this without seeing the show at a thrift store or a Goodwill store, and they only wanted $15 for it, and we're like, oh, that's not too bad. We'll go for it. So obviously, if you've seen this before, you know that they made it look like a VHS tape. I was going to have you show the other side, but it's VHS all around. It says VHS and hi-fi right there. It actually has a fake sticker on it, like it was picked up at a yard sale or something.
And it's all beat up around the sides.
Yeah, the sides actually, if you can see those very well. It's funny because it's not actually beat up. They literally made the box look beat up, which is neat.
Yeah.
And as she showed you, it looks like a VHS tape, an oversized VHS tape.
Yeah.
But it is
Was this
all
about the
the
size
way
of the beta?
around. No, the beta tapes were even
Were they
smaller.
I thought there was something that was bigger than a VHS.
Not, to my knowledge, not tape-wise. They did like the VCDs and everything.
Anyway, and it does have "Please Be Kind" and "Rewind" on there. And the detail here, I'll let you hold over closer. They did a good job.
They did a fantastic job. Like I said, it is all the way around the front, all of the sides, and the label. And what it does is it opens on the back, and inside, friends don't lie. And we
had no idea what that meant.
Yeah, we opened this and we're like, all right, friends don't lie, I guess. Good advice.
Yeah.
You have the Blu-ray discs, and behind it, are the DVD discs, and then a hand coming out of the tree. If you guys know what that's all about, we do now.
Yeah, totally.
But something very interesting about this, collector set and everything. No bonus features.
Yeah, that kind of really bugged me. It's like, if you guys are going to take the time to make this really cool packaging, which they did, like I said, all the way around, even the tops here looks like the VHS bits. Like, you feel like you could really push that button and open that. Why wouldn't you put any special features on there? Especially as well received as the show did, you would think that they would get you some special features out there. So I was actually
deleted scenes, gag reels, maybe behind the scenes stuff, making of. They use a lot of great music in the show, so why not, feature some of that? Throw some music videos in or something.
It did come with a
poster. So about the only bonus feature to all of this, other than the box itself,
you get a poster. Is that the doorway? I can't even.
I think that's the Demogorgon. Is that his mouth open?
It looks like it says something in there. I don't know.
It says Stranger Things.
Oh, does it?
All of his slobber and mucus.
I think that's why I thought it was the doorway, because of the weird, things that would break apart and then go back together.
Now, real quick, just in case there are any other Stranger Things Nerdgins out there, like we were,
actually
we are going to talk a little bit about the show. So yeah, there's probably going to be spoilers because, like everything else, we're just going to be all over the place.
So if you don't want any more spoilers, watch this video again after you see it, and just treat the first part of it as a, hey, cool, check this neat little box set out. So you know, oh yeah, I want to go get that box set. But we definitely want you to come back and watch the video. And if you have seen it, let's talk.
So, in short, first season, we've only watched the first season.
Yeah, we haven't watched season 2. So no spoilers in the comments of season 2, guys.
So what did you think of season 1?
Well, I feel like I'm going to make some people mad, but I didn't get it. I mean, no, I didn't get the hype. I got the show. I understood how the show worked. But I didn't get the hype and how everyone was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, it's so amazing. It was a good show. I was interested in it. I'm very much interested to see season 2, but to me it didn't have that huge wow factor that I guess I was expecting. Maybe if we had watched it with everybody else.
Now, I can agree with her on this point because I was the same way. Now, I will admit that I'm not the biggest television fan in the world, but with all of the, as she said, all of the hype, I mean, it was just to the ceiling with the hype for this show. I tried to go into it with lower expectations because I didn't want it to not be able to live up to the expectations that it has. But again, I'm in the same boat. I didn't quite see why people loved it so much. That is not me saying that it was not good.
Yeah, no, I liked it. I enjoyed it.
I thought it was good, and I did enjoy it. But to the extent that people went on and on about it, it was like, well, I guess to each their own, because I wasn't quite feeling that.
But yeah, it was still good. We had some decent character development. It was a slow burning show, so it kind of made you want to watch the next episode because you didn't feel like you got quite as much in this episode, so you needed to watch the next one. So I mean, I guess they did a good job in making you want to come back for more and whatnot.
Per each episode, they very much had a formula of, like she said, slow burn throughout the episode, very slow build-ups, but they did a great job of ending each episode on a note, not always a cliffhanger, but always on a note of, I want to see the next one. I want to come back and see what happens next.
I am definitely ready to start season 2 and check it out and see, what's going on and stuff.
One thing that I really enjoyed about this was the setting, the time setting, especially being in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that I liked it, I mean, I like 80s stuff. It's kind of fun. I grew up in the 80s. So there's that bit of nostalgia. But what I liked was that it was a very realistic 80s. You didn't have people coming in every 2 seconds being like, hey guys, I got an Atari game.
Yeah.
Or, hey guys, are you thirsty? How about new Coke?
Yeah, I will say that was kind of fun. Everything 80s was just in the background or utilized.
They did a great job of making it feel like it was done in the 80s. Because when shows were done in the 80s, they weren't self-aware of it, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Things just were.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't make a point out of Atari games or new Coke because that's what you have. I mean, that's just what's there.
One thing, having grown up in the 80s, and I was a major TV show and movie person, even back in the 80s, I really did like the opening credit. Not through all the names, but when it got to the actual name, it said Stranger Things, because you could see the film crinklies, was it dust?
It's kind of the film imperfections,
and
the dust,
the way
and
the sound wasn't quite that great.
You could hear it kind of go in and out. So
it was like, I really appreciated that because it's like, yes, I remember that. And you don't realize that's not there until you go back and watch something like that. Something else that I noticed watching the show was I'm so used to having the internet nowadays that it was funny to me that they couldn't just look something up that they needed to know. They had to call somebody or they had to go to the library. Like the kids, they're like, how do we make a sensory deprivation tank? And I'm like, well, Google. But, they're calling their teacher and he's like, dude, it's 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday. He didn't, I'm surprised he'd be like, and I got a girl over here that I want to do some stuff with.
Yeah.
But, they're like, and he's like, well, you need this. And I'm like, we would just Google that nowadays. So, you know, it was kind of neat that they were showing that, oh yeah, back then we did have to find other resources.
In the 80s, the struggle was real.
It was. And it, you know, having grown up in that time period, it was like, oh yeah.
Now, I would like to touch on the story. I am a big fan of the idea of kind of like modern fantasy and modern sci-fi. Don't get me wrong, I love Lord of the Rings stuff, you know. I love, obviously, like Star Trek and Star Wars, you know, where it's a bit more futuristic, even with Star Wars being a long time ago, but feeling like the future. I still have a hard time realizing that. But I really like the idea. I feel like it's very underutilized, having a more modern sci-fi or a modern fantasy storyline. One of the reasons why I'm very much looking forward to Ready Player One as a movie and loving the book because of all the cultural references, but also because of the setting. You know, it's in the future, but it's the not so distant future. And that was something that I liked about this, because the idea of having, you know, these monsters and these mysteries and 11 with her special abilities and everything, but having them in an 80s and in a small town. You know, you have this government facility that's nearby, you know, what was it? A Department of Energy or something, you know? Right, sure.
You always know the Department of Energy, power and energy is always government.
But I really liked that aspect of the story. And I did like that it wasn't blown out of the water. You know, they make a lot of references to X-Men comics, but it's not like you have this facility just pouring out children with special abilities. You know, there's basically just one person with special powers here, and then there's just kind of some weird stuff going on. And because of that, and then mixing it with the 80s, keep in mind in the 80s, we didn't have to have everything over-explained to us. So I actually enjoyed the fact that Will's mother, for example, she just accepted the fact that she's talking to her son via the lights and everything.
I think that one, though, maybe being a mother myself, you can understand why she would accept that one so easily, because she wants to talk to her child so bad that she's going to take anything as, yes, this is my kid, you know, I can talk to my kid. So that one I felt was very easy to
then
accept.
I guess
that one.
A better example would be the police chief, Hopper.
Yeah, he did accept things rather quickly.
He accepted things very quickly, and even, you know, obviously Will's brother Jonathan, you know, again, you could do the family thing, but a lot of the characters, especially as the show progressed, the
sister Nancy accepted it really quickly.
Yeah, they just accepted things very quickly. But I liked that because, you know, sometimes in movies and shows nowadays, we get a little over encumbered by people trying to explain why they eventually accepted it. And it's like, well, let's just kind of get to the point and have some fun with it.
Something I will point out that I thought was rather odd, because we were exposed to Stranger Things a lot before we watched it, the alphabet with the lights on it. I really expected to see that everywhere. And
you have your one defining scene with it.
Yeah.
And then you see it in the background.
Very short scene.
Yes.
And then the rest of the time they were in the house, you would see it as they would pass it or whatever. But I mean, like, we would see it at Halloween stores. People had, you know, you could buy it as a prop. We saw people making their own as Halloween decorations and everything. So I was expecting this to be like an integral part of the show, and like that's the only way we were gonna talk to people.
Yeah, it seemed like it was going to be a bigger deal than what
and
it was.
And it was like this much. So I thought that was, and I mean, it's even on the back of the box, for heaven's sakes, you know. And so I thought that was a little odd.
Moving on from the story, another thing that I liked were the characters. Pretty much all of the characters were very likable. All of the children seemed very likable.
They seemed normal, too.
Yes,
like normal and natural. They felt like they didn't feel overdone or not in character for themselves, I guess. Or...
They felt very real.
Yes.
Like realistic
natural.
As far as kids were. You know, kind of a great example, you know, spoilers, obviously, when 11 is gone at the end of the season 1, and you have Lucas and I can only remember the bullies naming him off as Toothless.
That's Dusty.
But
that's why I have my iPad here, because I'm terrible with names.
When you have Lucas and Dusty wrestling in the background, while Mike is in the foreground looking at Eleven's tent, and he's very sad. The fact that his friends are wrestling in the background, despite everything that's just happened, that seemed very real, because you very much feel like children would kind of move on that quickly and move on the way that they did.
Well, and even the fact that they come back and everyone's kind of gotten back to their normal lives.
Yes,
for that matter.
Everyone just kind of moved on.
The 4 friends are downstairs playing Dungeons and Dragons again. Mom's upstairs cooking. You know, dad's watching TV, daughter's watching TV.
But that was a nice touch with all of the characters, because all, you know, in beyond just the children, you know, Will's mother Joyce, she very much seemed like a very realistic motherly character, which I'm not against or for Winona Ryder, but she did that well.
Yeah.
You know, she very much was believable to me as a mother who had lost her son and was not giving up on finding him and was going to do everything she could to find him. But the awkwardness between the teenagers was very well done.
I liked the progression of characters. Like, you know, the whole, you know, in the beginning, the kids are very much left to be on their own and allowed to, you know, ride their bikes all over town. And because of this, the son is either kidnapped or, you know, taken by this Demogorgon thing. And at the end, the brother comes and picks the son up. Because, you know, they're like, well, obviously it's not safe to let the kids out anymore. So, you know, I liked the progression of that. And it felt normal and natural. It didn't feel forced or anything like that. I liked how they just kind of didn't acknowledge things anymore. You know, they were trying to get back to their normal lives, but like, we're still going to pick you up.
For all of the praise that I'm giving the characters and the story, one plot hole that kind of bothered me, or I name it as a plot hole, when Hopper went to the facility and he was able to break in and he got so far in there and everything, and they capture him, knock him out, and he wakes up in his home, and they've kind of played it up to be like, oh, you didn't see anything, you're all doped up and everything and drunk. And then he tears this place apart and finds the wire where they're listening in on him. It felt inconsistent that if they had gone through that much trouble...
They're not going to put it in an obvious place that every 80s movies put it in the light?
No, what bothered me was that they went through that much trouble, but they didn't follow up on that. Are you telling me that they didn't realize he had found their wire? Because I feel like they would have known that.
Yeah.
You know, because I think he pulled it loose so that they couldn't listen in. So if they couldn't hear him anymore, I feel like they would have sent people there. I guess you could argue that that's maybe why the other police officers suddenly showed up at his house. But even if that were the case, they still didn't follow up on it. And I feel like they would have, you know, kept him under a tight watch after he was able to get so far into the facility. Yeah.
Obviously, season 2 is out, so there are probably questions answered that I have at the moment. But, you know, it's like, when they came at the end and picked Hopper up and took him away, and then we see him again later at the police station, it's like, what happened? You know, what did they discuss? What deal did he make? You know, and stuff like that. And then for him to go and leave the food and the Eggos out in the woods, it's like, you know, is he working with them? Did he give them some kind of deal, but he's still not really working with them? You know, like I said, I'm sure those were probably answered in season 2.
She's focusing on stuff that's being set up, you know, the groundwork for season 2, and I'm here picking season 1 apart.
Well, that's kind of, you know, that's kind of what we do.
Moving on with characters, kind of like with the lights not being that big of a deal, I felt like the character Barb, I felt like there was a lot of mention of her.
She was very much a throwaway character, I feel like.
Right, that's what I'm getting at, is, you know, people that really like the show, I kept hearing a lot about Barb. I thought there would be more to her, and I think there's even a Funko Pop.
There is a Funko Pop of Barb. There's a plushie of Barb.
It very much felt like she was barely in it and didn't serve a whole lot of purpose.
And no one seemed to really care that she was dead.
Yeah, Nancy seemed to be the only one that cared.
We didn't see a funeral later. We didn't see a memorial at the school.
When you have a funeral for a kid that's not really there, you know,
well, there
maybe
was the newspaper clipping of the boy who came back to life.
But again, all I'm saying is, you know, kind of like the lights, it seemed to be a very big thing about the show, and she didn't seem to be in it a whole lot.
Yeah, you guys tell us, what do you think about Barb? Was she... The only thing I can say about Barb, she looked like the quintessential 80s teenage girl. I mean, she had the big glasses, the outrageous makeup, the quintessential 80s hair, clothing. I mean, it was almost like she was representation of this is the 80s in this one character.
She was very like Molly Ringwald character at the start of a movie, and you're kind of waiting for her to have that moment where she does the slow descent down the stairs before the big dance. And then she's beautiful because she's not wearing glasses anymore, and her hair is fixed.
It's amazing how when you take off glasses, you become gorgeous.
As far as other characters, Steve was funny, not because he was a jerk. He needed to get what was coming to him, but it was funny because I believe the first 2 episodes, I don't know about you, but I kept looking at him thinking, man, this guy, the actor playing Steve, it's like I felt like I had seen him in something before. Oh, we're getting there.
Yeah, we'll tell you where it was because I remember where we saw him from.
Thinking that he was from the 80s. I was like, he looked the part so well. And I kept thinking, I've seen this guy in an 80s movie.
He said it to me, and I go, you know what he looks like? He looks like that Ferris Bueller knockoff pizza commercial where the kid's like ordering pizza and then running through the street, and
I think that was Domino's.
So... Or was it Domino's? Yeah, and I was like, it looks like that kid. They're parodying Ferris Bueller, but it's this 80s kid. And Tom, he looked it up on the internet. He goes, "Yep, that's him." I'm like, there we know.
So after those first 2 episodes, the rest of the time we just kind of called him the Domino's kid.
Speaking of Steve, I was going to mention him. He's the one character that I felt that he did act out of character, because he was kind of a chauvinistic jerk throughout the whole season until right there at the end when he's sitting there on his car waiting for his friend to bring him aspirin, and all of a sudden he does a complete 180.
Yeah, that kind of came out of nowhere.
It didn't seem like he really cared that much about Nancy. He just wanted to get in her pants like all teenage boys. And all of a sudden he feels bad about helping his friend write slut and getting the shit beat out of him. And it's like, really? All of a sudden, like, did he literally knock sense into you?
It felt like we missed something.
It did, like we missed an episode or something.
More how he felt about
and,
her.
For him to turn on of course, his friends were jerks, but he, kept going along with them and laughing with them, and then all of a sudden turns on his friends and then decides that he goes and wants to be with Nancy and he wants to help the kids, and, and then it just felt like he was 2 different characters. Because after he shows up and does say that he wants to help Nancy, it makes sense that he comes back into the house and helps beat up the Demogorgon and continue to work with them and everything. But I was very shocked at his 180 turnaround. It didn't feel that did not feel natural. That felt weird. And then I was very surprised at the end to see Nancy with him and not with Jonathan.
And obviously that must be a season 2 story arc to build upon. Because we can't be the only ones wondering what's going on.
Yeah, like all of a sudden you just,
Of course, if we're talking about characters, we cannot forget about L11. I thought the actress did a really good job with how minimalistic of a role that it was. I mean, most of the time she was just kind of standing and, staring. Very limited dialogue.
Which made sense. I mean, if you're a child brought up in a laboratory and you don't get that nature versus nurture kind of a thing, you don't get coddled and loved on and, got to play with toys, it makes sense that, you don't really have those ways of dealing, the social aspect of things.
Every time she had one of those more powerful and emotional scenes, though, the actress just nailed it.
I mean,
you really felt it, whenever she would be in the upside down, via the tanks and everything. But whenever she was there and she would see something that would make her really sad or really scared, or at the end, the final showdown with the Demogorgon, when she just vaporizes him, the power there, the few moments where she would really have that connection with Mike, the chances that she got to shine emotionally, she really did well. And I think it was so impressive due to the fact that she had such limited dialogue and she had to kind of put all of that acting
in her facial expressions.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was really neat. And of course, very touching, the first time she puts the wig on and she has the nice, the dress when it's still nice, obviously. And she, looks in the mirror and she sees herself as being pretty. I mean, it's like such a heart-tugging moment.
Comes out and asks the boys, "Am I pretty?" It's like, "Yeah, you're pretty."
And then later in the series or the season, when she doesn't have the wig, and when Mike tells her you don't need it, she asks, "Still pretty?" And he's like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah.
But she was. I mean, she was great. She was fantastic. Obviously, very much looking forward to season 2 to see, if she returns, because I've not followed, read, listened, watched.
Thankfully, I haven't come across any spoilery things for season 2. I think maybe it's so new that it hasn't been out there long enough for it.
One more thing I definitely want to touch on, all of the little nuances to things that obviously inspired certain elements of the show and the season. I tell you what, when Nancy is helping Jonathan put all of the booby traps throughout the house to try to catch the Demogorgon, it was very much Nightmare on Elm Street. Nancy setting up traps for Freddy once she brings him into the real world. The kids using the slingshot against the Demogorgon, very reminiscent of the Loser Club going up against Pennywise, in the sewers, and all they have, of course, is the slingshot there. The whole show was just littered with moments like that. There were just so many great moments, but kind of like with the 80s nostalgia, it wasn't forced. At least it didn't feel forced. It's kind of one of those, like, it would happen and you would think, hey, is that like, I bet it is.
Yeah, there were a lot of moments like that. It's very clear that the whole brothers, I can't remember what their names are.
Will and Jonathan?
No, the brothers that created the show and the directors.
Oh, I don't remember their names.
I know they're in the credits every time we pay attention to it. We usually fast forward through for the first parts. But they were very much inspired by Stephen King. I think a lot of it had a lot of influence on them and everything.
Stephen King and probably a lot of John Carpenter. Obviously there were a lot of things referencing the Thing in this. Even a lot of the font is very reminiscent of a lot of the old John Carpenter movies when they would come home to home video and everything. But overall, not for me, not the end all be all of television shows, but a very good watch. I was very surprised by it. I believe it was only 8 episodes,
it was 8
but
episodes.
I thought that was great. I know 13 is typically the regular season long range, but I think with 8 they were able to tell a pretty good story.
I liked that they did wrap it up. I was kind of afraid, since we did have a season 2, that they wouldn't quite find Will or something, or they would leave it kind of open-ended. But I'm glad that it did feel like they wrapped it up. Just in case they didn't get a second season, we still got a nice resolution, and everyone lived happily ever after, even though...
Of course, you got Will puking
that's what I was getting ready to say.
slugs.
They did a good job of wrapping it up, but yet still kind of leaving it open with, what's going to happen with Will puking up a little baby slug, and having a quick flash of the Upside Down. Is that a PTSD thing, and he's just getting a flash, or is he kind of now living in both realms, in and out of, he's got 1 foot in one realm, 1 foot in the other realm. And, speaking of the little slug thing, that was very alien reminiscent with the cracked open egg and the thing.
Yeah.
Basically, it was, would you call it an esophagus hugger? Not a face
I
hugger.
guess so, yeah.
But it's because that thing was...
I'm gonna hug you from the inside.
Yeah. I'm gonna coil around all your intestines in there.
But it's kind of weird, because I thought that 8 episodes was a good length for it. Even though it did feel like it kind of padded it out on some things. I think 8 episodes was a good length, despite the fact that maybe they drug things out, maybe burned a little too slowly some of the story elements. But that being said, I don't know how I would feel if they tried to go in and speed that up.
There were things I could have done without, like, I get that, he's talking to her through the telephone and it was too much, so it would zap it out, but I think she changed phones like 3 times. I didn't need to see her do that 3 times.
Yes, that's true. Her multiple trips to the store at the beginning. Some of the teenage party sequence, the pool party and everything before we lose Barb. Little things like that. It felt more like maybe they couldn't decide exactly what they were going for. It was kind of like they were making scenes for a movie, but then they realized, oh wait, this is just an hour-long show.
The other thing is, in the 80s, they loved montages. Do you remember how much they loved montages in the 80s? So I was kind of a little upset that there wasn't a montage at the end instead of... Because we went from, oh my gosh, we destroyed a Demogorgon, there's multiple dead bodies all over the school, to I'm making Christmas cake. And we show Will's house and it's completely back to normal and almost looks even better than before. So it's like we could have had a nice montage of, maybe the community coming together to help her fix her house. Throw in a memorial or a funeral for Barb. Just kind of like a lot of the stuff that you needed to wrap up quickly. Do a lovely 80s montage about.
Yes,
because it was a little odd that all of a sudden this house was destroyed.
It did seem like it kind of... everything just happened real quickly at the end. But maybe they were kind of following that 80s trope of, everything's back to normal like that without the montage. Yeah. Besides, you gotta save your montages for your training and everything anyway. You get that, pumping like rock song or something and run through the snow with a log on your back.
But anyway, I liked it, but, I'm with Tom, and I really apologize to anybody out there if we make you mad. But yeah, it was a great show, but it wasn't like the hype. I don't feel it lived up to the hype.
It was a very good show, very unique, good story, well done. Some things that it could fix. Very interested in season 2 to see if it fixes those. Collector's edition, really neat. I love how it looks. It's awesome, but give me some special features. Yeah. If I'm going to go out of my way to collect this on physical media, especially with it being a Netflix show to begin with, put some extras on there. Let's have some fun with it and everything.
Even back in the day, the special features when DVDs first came out was like your special feature was scene selection. Do you want English or Spanish or French? So it's like, but yeah, I was actually really upset that there were no special features on here.
So, all right, well,
but anyway,
I think that wraps up our first episode, or at least our first attempt, if this does not go over well, for Nerdgins. We have some ideas. Hopefully we can get some of our pals in.
Leave us some suggestions down below. We have, like we said, we have not done everything. We have not checked everything out. So, leave some suggestions below. Like he said, we're going to try to get some guests in on this, some of our friends in on this stuff. So leave us a comment on this video, like us on Facebook, maybe leave us some comments on Facebook about it. Check us out on Instagram.
Let us know what you guys thought. Let us know if, if you were part of the hype, what was it that hyped you up so much about the show? Or if you came to it late, let us know what you think. Maybe hold off on the season 2 spoilers
don't spoil
for us,
it.
Please. But otherwise, let us know what you think of the show. Let us know what you think of this episode. If you'd like to see some more Nerdgins stuff, see us kind of catch up on a few things. Hopefully it won't always just be shows. We'll be hopefully all across the board.
There's plenty of video games we're way behind on.
1 or 2, maybe. But otherwise, like, comment, subscribe. Like she said, we're on Facebook and Instagram, so, we're all over the place.
Yep.
All right. Well, I could go for some Eggo right now. What do you think?
I would like some Eggos, yes.
Some Eggos?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go get some Eggos for dinner. All right, nerdlings. Bye. Do not blow up the camera. Don't blow up the camera again.
Yeah. Some strange things going on here. I can't believe I made that joke.
I know.
All right. Whoa!
Stan tried to
He's
kill me.
standing there, but he came at you with a hatchet.
I know, Stan tried to kill me.